When you look at the history of women's evolution, you see we've made enormous strides forward. We have social equity, sexual freedom, equal rights, and equality in the workplace. But today, at the beginning of the 21st century, we find ourselves in new and unfamiliar circumstances, juggling work and family, belief in cynicism. We no longer have a traditional role to play that we are bound by. But I wonder how free we really are. When you move from the secular world to the spiritual world, we find that many of our religious traditions are slow to rectify their gender biases and still tend to relegate women to secondary roles. As postmodern women, we've abandoned these traditions in droves, and many of us have yet to find a meaningful alternative path towards spiritual fulfillment. What would true spiritual equality look like for women? And how would such an equality affect our culture and our freedom?
It's the first decade of the 21st century. For only 50 years, women have had control over our bodies through birth control in ways that have never happened before, have had access to political and economic power that has never existed before. At the beginning of the 20th century, women's lifespan were 40 years less than they are now. I mean, we're living longer, we have more options, we have options. We can be whoever we want to be. That has never happened before in history. But all of who we are, you know, every aspect of our psyche has been programmed to sort of exist in another context. It's like we've been shaped by hundreds and thousands of years of needing male protection in order to be able to survive. We've been shaped by the fact that half of the human race could do what they want with us because they were stronger than we are. You know, we've been shaped by a very deep fear of being out, of putting ourselves out because it was a risk, you know, out was a risky place to be. This is something that I've realized in my own life because the more I cared about women and the more I cared about doing something for women and making a difference, I knew I had to be out. But I also realized that at a fundamental level, I was terrified. And I kept thinking, you know, how am I going to get the emotional strength and support and the guts to put out what I care most deeply about? Because as a woman, I've learned how to hide that, how to hold that back from life. It doesn't mean you can't do good work. It doesn't mean that I wasn't doing good work. But the very deepest part of myself, the part of myself that wants to scream for revolution, the part of myself that says something actually has to happen and wants to convey that to other women, I was afraid to really put that out. And then I met Andrew Cohen. He was pointing to something that no one in the women's movement, no one in academia was pointing to. Andrew Cohen is a spiritual teacher who has a radical vision for the next women's liberation, for what is possible for women if we come together beyond ego. Now, I'd come together with women a lot before. I was involved in the National Organization for Women, this incredible collaborative research group with Carol Gilligan, but every group of women I'd been in, despite how much we all cared about each other and cared about the work that we were doing, there was some fundamental way that we were in conflict with each other. Something would go awry and there was backbiting and just pulling each other down, actually. No one allowed to really shine completely, because everyone had to stay somewhat at the same level. But what Andrew was saying is if women can come together beyond that, can transcend this aspect of woman's nature, then something revolutionary could happen. And And I knew that was true. I knew that was true because patriarchy is based on women's separation from each other and women's separation from men and men's separation from women. So if that plug was pulled, a plug that now is inside us, that's not something that's being enforced from outside, but that is actually inside us, is our psyche. If that were to be changed, then something radical would happen. It would really be a new women's liberation.